Okay, I'm going to show you all how to use Color Scheme Designer. So we're going to start off by just going to this link. There might be a little window that pops up here when you first open it. That's fine to ignore. What we have here is Adobe's official Color Scheme Designer. Now there's a whole bunch of options over here and they're all going to be things that we talk about. At least on these first few. We might not get down to these so much. First thing I want you to really do though is just kind of play around with this and see what it does, because you'll probably be able to figure out what each of these mean a whole lot faster by just playing with it than it will be from me explaining it. So right now we are in an analogous color scheme. That's analogous. That means basically one color and then one color next to it on either side on the color wheel. Now I know this is a group of 5 and that's more just an Adobe thing. I believe it does let us change how many colors you're exactly messing around with, but we're going to leave that alone for right now. The other thing you may have noticed is as I spun this around, if you come closer to the middle, the colors get more washed out and closer to white, and if you pull them closer out, they become more intense and saturated. The other thing to consider is right down here says Color Mode RGB. There are other color modes in here as well, like CMYK, which we've talked about. We haven't talked so much about these. We're going to stick with RGB for this project, and you'll see why in a second here in Illustrator, because that's definitely going to make a big difference as far as how we do these colors. Alright, so I'm just going to go with a very simple analogous color scheme. So I'm liking this sort of dusky, almost indigo here, and having blue and purple to either side. Now the other thing is that I can go and adjust these individual colors and their relationships as far as how these overall colors look. So if I want to make this whole thing a little bit more muted, I can then take these other colors and change what they look like as well. So let's say I like this color scheme that I've got going here. I want to use all these colors. Maybe I'll make this middle one just a little bit darker there. Okay, so you'll notice that there's these codes here, right? So if you take this code and copy it, I'm just going to do Control-C. I'm on a Mac, so Command-C for me. If I come back to Illustrator and I make myself a new document here, I'm actually going to click on New File instead of just clicking Letter, and you'll see why in a second here. So I click on New File, and this is something we haven't had to change before. We're going to keep it on Letter. If you don't see Letter, you can click on Print and then go to Letter from there. But here's what's a little bit different. We're going to click where it says Color Mode and CMYK Color. We're going to put that on RGB. The reason we're doing this is because when you're in that color scheme designer, very often you're actually seeing colors that we cannot make with CMYK, but we can make them with RGB. So I've got that color code copied, so all I'm going to do is come over here and double click on my fill color, and right there it was already highlighted, paste that code and say OK, and there's that color. And now I can come over to my swatches. If you don't see that, you can just click on it here, or you can go to Window, Swatches, and get it from here. And to make a new swatch, I'm just going to hit this button right here, New Swatch, and say OK. And there's what it added it right there. So I'm just going to do that for each of my colors that are in this color scheme. So again, copy it, back to Illustrator, double click on my fill color, paste it, say OK, New Swatch, say OK, and there's that second color there. I'm just going to keep doing this for each of them. Alright, now I have all of my colors, and you'll notice actually I can select all of them at the same time. Just same way we select anything, I click on the last one, then I hold shift and click on the first one, and I can actually create a new color group from these. So I'm going to call this analogous colors, and hopefully not have too many typos. And now that's saved that down there, so I've got those colors by themselves. Let's look at some of these other color schemes and come up with some other ones as well. So monochromatic is probably what I should have started with, but I didn't because I wanted to have a slightly more colorful example. Monochromatic is literally mono, meaning one, chromatic, color, one color. Now you might look at this and think, well, that looks like much more than one color. The reason for that is because monochromatic is actually one color plus its tints and shades. So in this case, here's our one color, is wherever I drag this around, and then its tints, which is adding white, and shades, which is adding black, are represented by these two circles. So if I go somewhere like here, and let's maybe make these shades a little bit less intense. Ooh, jeez. And we can mess with that a little bit more there. I kind of like that. So looking at these colors, I might not necessarily always like all of the colors that it gives me. Like for example, it's really making this much darker than I want it to be, but there's the nice thing. I have full control over this. I can go in there and change this to whatever I want it to actually look like manually by messing with these settings as we're seeing it here. So here we have our settings for red, green, and blue, and then our overall brightness and contrast, which is what we're seeing me mess with right there. So I'm just going to come in here and really show you just how much control we have over this kind of stuff. So let's look at this. I kind of actually like these two colors plus this color. I don't really like this one, but I could then take this, this, and this, take these three codes, go back into Illustrator, and make myself some new swatches. Alright, and there I have my colors, 1, 2, 3. Not much contrast between those, they're all pretty close to each other, but that is a decent monochromatic color scheme. I'm going to select those, make a new folder, call it monochromatic, and there we are. Alright, now let's just play with some of these other color schemes. Alright, next we've got a triadic color scheme, which is basically just 3 colors evenly spaced on the color wheel. And you'll see here where I'm just sort of changing the intensity on them. The main thing with a triadic color scheme is that it's almost always just going to be your primary colors or your secondary colors. It's going to be close to red, yellow, blue, or green, orange, violet, and that's just because that's just the structure of a triadic color scheme, is that they're going to be evenly spaced like that. Alright, and next we have a complementary color scheme, which is this time just 2 colors, one color and then its opposite on the color wheel. And pretty simple here, it's just complementary colors, something that you should have known since elementary school, but again we're just able to change like that intensity. Split complementary is, imagine a color, it's opposite on the color wheel, and then you have the 2 colors next to that. So again, we can kind of change the spacing on there, but the overall relationship is going to stay the same. So it does not actually include the complementary color, it's the 2 colors next to the complementary color. This is actually a pretty fun one. I like playing with this one a lot. You can get a lot of variation on that. Double split complementary is a little bit weirder, harder to explain. It's almost like you have a rectangle that you're dealing with on the color wheel. You do have one stable color, which is this one here, and that will affect the rest of them. The rest of these color schemes, like square, these are less ones that we're going to focus on because our main ones for this project are analogous, monochromatic, triadic, complementary, and split complementary. But I do want you to know that you've got some of these in here that definitely have their unique uses, and especially ones like shades and custom. You really have almost complete control over a lot of things that you may not have expected. For example, on custom here, it is literally just you mapping out individual colors and exactly what you want to do with them. Alright. One last thing that I wanted to share here is how you can go and make a color scheme from an already existing image. And that is where we're going to go into extract theme up here, where basically you just give this program a picture. In this case, I'm going to give it this picture I have of some blue crabs that I've got on my computer, well, somewhere. There it is. And I'm going to tell it, hey, make me a color scheme based on this picture. And there we go, now it's giving me a color scheme based on this photo. You can even take these individual little points and really change up how it's extracting those colors. Over on the left, we have all sorts of different methods for how to change how it does this. That's just a pretty fun little thing I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of. For this project, though, you're really just going to focus on making 2 color schemes from either monochromatic, analogous, complementary, split complementary, triadic. You're going to choose 2 of those to put into this project. We will get to this a little bit later.